Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats for today. It is April 4th, 2024. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. I think I say that every week. It always seems like, how can it possibly be enter a date here? Today is home opener day in St. Louis, so I'll be going to the Cardinals game today. But before we do that, we're super excited to have Sarah Williams-Lang join us today. She has been on the IC TIG leadership. She joins us frequently for these chats, and she also has hosted a couple sessions like she is today about books that she's read and that she thinks we all should read. And today we're talking about strategic doing. I managed to get through it today. By the way, if you ever read this book, read the book with your eyes and not with your ears like I did. It's really hard to read while listening. I mean, listen to reading, however you call it that. It's a great book. And I feel like I'm going to learn much more about the book by actually talking about it today, because listening to it's hard. But it's I think it's a fantastic book, and I think it has a lot of application for all of our businesses. But anyway, I'm going to let Sarah take over, and I'm going to be quiet. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see your faces and your names and know a lot of you. And there's some people I don't know, which I always love. So to get to know new people through this network. I am an independent consultant, and I partner with mission-driven organizations and collectives to support their evaluation and learning strategy. And I also help build insightful data collection and reporting systems. And I've worked with a lot of different initiatives and programs and organizations, and a lot of them have been in the public health field and the social services sector. So strategic doing was suggested by another evaluator during a discussion about systems thinking in evaluation, and it piqued my interest, and I read it. And basically the authors of strategic doing have been working in the field of strategy, learning, leadership and collaboration for over 25 years. And this book is offering an approach to strategy, leadership strategy, for today's open, loosely connected networks and solving complex issues. Why do I find this book important and to bring to you? It is that my approach to evaluation is I highly value empowerment and participation and cultural responsiveness in my approach. And I feel like this offering of how to do strategic leadership and agile leadership helps me to really live those values, along with the other things that I come across from the evaluation field and learning from others. So I also work on projects and initiatives that are usually like starting or in the implementation stage. And so this was really helpful for me to think about how to frame more strategic conversations with program staff that are going through these this work and iterations. And then also, yeah, I do have notes because I don't remember things off the top of my head. And also I like to work with smaller and sometimes newer organizations and collectives, and they often don't need a big strategic plan and taking a half a year to do it. It's more that they just need to get the ball rolling, and this also offers a good framing on how to do that, and something that you can share out and really get the whole group behind. So why I think you'll like it is, I think as independent consultants, we can always do more professional work in strategy and leadership, and this is a helpful book in practicing skills around that. And also, if you're an independent consultant, I hope you're doing business development, so it actually helps has helped push me along the lines of how to push myself to make decisions in my business development. So before we begin, could you give me an indication of whether you've read the book or not? So just, I guess if we all know how to do the hand raise, that might be the easiest way, because then we don't have to put it in the chat. If you go to, for me, nope. How do you get to the, okay, well, Matt, how do you get to raising your hand on this?
Reactions down at the bottom. If you have a little Zoom bar, it looks
Okay.
like a smiley face with a plus over its head, and then
Okay.
raise your hand. So Lily and I did it.
Okay. Lily, hi Lily. And we have 2 more chats I'm just gonna look up. Click the plus head. Thanks, Joe. Okay, so good. I'm going to give everybody a good review of the book, and then we can get into discussion. And if you start like nodding off, or you want me to wrap it up and just get to the discussion, I fully support you telling me that. But I did try to make it brief enough so we can get to the discussion portion. But here we go. Oops. You know, Sarah, one day you'll get better at this Zoom sharing. All right. So the authors are talking about how today's environment is really, the issues in today's society are very complex, and there's an inadequacy of traditional strategic planning to meet these complex issues. They also make mention of they also make mention of the transition from, they make a lot of mention about the transition from a hierarchical structure of the way we work and the way we communicate and the way we meet each other and all walks of life, has transitioned from this hierarchical structure to more open, loosely connected networks. And the authors say that like strategic planning was built in the age of a hierarchical structure, so that dominated. And the authors also talk about different types of networks, but the ones that they're most interested in are innovating networks, where you bring a group of people and organizations together to create a new value. And they gave the creation of the iPod as an example. So we might associate it immediately with Apple, but it was actually a huge group project with all different organizations that where Apple was at the center, but there were different networks, both more immediate and peripheral, that were all working together to create this new iPod. So and it basically couldn't have happened without that networking. And networks have several characteristics, and these impact strategy. So they form around a set of assets or resources, which is the hub of the network. And there's usually a core set of people that have created the network usually, but then there's also loosely connected people. And these networks are never static. People move in and out of them, networks change. And there's also no top or bottom to these network structures, like in a hierarchical format. And then boundary spanners are those who, we all have different networks that we're connected to. So we're boundary spanners and different connectors, as connectors to different networks. And the issue here is that sometimes our networks have aligned needs, but sometimes their needs are at cross purposes. So that's something to look out for. And essentially, traditional strategic planning methods don't work for networked environments because they inherently require a stable environment, and they also require a command and control structure. And that's just not how we operate in a lot of today's world. And then another fundamental difference is how communication flows. So in hierarchical form, it's top down, and basically like decisions are made top down, and the reactions are coming from the bottom to the top. But for a network, the main challenge is to get the resources and the people aligned on the same chosen objective. Any questions yet? Maybe I'll just pause and see if anybody's. Okay, Jason. I found strategic planning can be problematic to evaluators when orgs feel they have enough evidence and choose to spend on growing businesses instead of investing in continuing to learn, improve, and grow their impact. And Kelly says, I find it more problematic when funders say that strategic planning is the same as evaluation. All very good points, and I'm very excited to get into the discussion part. I do find that, I think another reason is that I like this is because I always find myself in strategic discussions with organizations and trying to help move them, honestly moving them along, but while also ensuring that they are finding ways to measure what they're doing. So I actually feel like pulling together strategy and evaluation has been a real asset for my work. And then the other part that the book focuses on is the S curve. So any typical change process is built on the shape of an S curve. So at the beginning, things are moving slowly. We're an independent consultant sitting in her home office. And then things start happening rapidly with the period of growth. And maybe I need a subcontractor, or I'm thinking about taking on some employees. But it's really exciting and very, very rapidly growing. And then we hit the plateau or the maturity stage. And that's when you've got your business where you want it. But it doesn't stay there. Basically, there's always change happening, and the decline is probably going to be, for me, it would be, my services, the way I do things are no longer relevant and I need to change my game, or I'm sunsetting my company. And the S curve highlights three important facts about change, which is it's constant, it's dynamic, it never keeps going on its initial momentum. And I love this one because it's so doom and gloom, but success contains the seeds of its own destruction. So in this one, you have one S curve and then the additional S curve, showing you that even though there's a decline, there's always new growth potential. And just gonna yeah, Matt, quote of the day. So the thing I love about this book is that really operationalizes collaboration. So when we think about collaboration, you might think of like networking. Everybody's just together and we're meeting each other, and maybe it's moving towards collaboration, but they talk about a continuum of joint efforts where the beginning is networking, exchanging info, then you move to coordinating or altering activities, then to like fit a little bit with each other, then you're moving to cooperating, which is agreeing to share resources, and then true collaboration is happening when you're linking, leveraging, and aligning resources that's enhancing everyone's capacity to create a shared outcome. And if we have read anything about emergent strategy, emergent learning, it's the emergent property that comes out of a group that's working for a greater cause. And true collaboration occurs when trust is high and turf wars are low. Turf meaning I own this is my property, and it's also a lot of being like fearful about giving intelligence away or that kind of stuff. So trust has to be really high for true collaboration to be there. And also trust is established when words and actions align, which is a pivotal part of this book, talking about strategic doing. So the four foundational questions that the key insight of strategic doing wraps around is, the key insight is that like you need to have structured conversations with a predictable flow. And they talk about four foundational questions for any strategic conversation. The first is, what could we do? What are the opportunities based on the assets that we already have? And what should we do is that basically like picking what you want to start off with. You can't do it all. And asking, what does success look like? The third is, what will we do? Where are we going to start? What project should we start on? What commitments are we going to make to each other in the beginning of the project? And then the fourth is, what's our 30-30? So this is a lot about constantly coming back to share and to learn about what you're doing, make changes you need to adapt, and constantly recommit to one another. And the authors break down 10 skills of strategic doing. These 10 skills are strategic doing that underlie the four questions. And you can practice them independently, or they could be used iteratively to drive the success and like the startup of a new network or collaboration. And they have a beautiful credo of inescapable interdependence, where no one is really good at all these 10 skills. And it's another reason why a diverse team is always necessary if you're really going to create true and lasting change. And I'm just going to read the chat for a moment just to see if I'm missing anything. And I have gotten brought in after a nonprofit spent money on a strategic plan and no measurement was planned at all. Yes. I bet, show of hands, who's had that happen. So yes, I've got some hands. Oh my gosh, I keep minimizing the wrong screen. I'm sorry. I really am better at technology than this. Oh my God, there's Matt. All right. So Sarah. So the 10 skills of building a purposeful collaboration, or just having a purposeful, collaborative, and strategic conversation. The first one and the second one both have to deal with designing a productive and collaborative conversation, and creating a safe space means making sure that you have a small enough group so that everybody can use their voice and can work collaboratively. They suggest the perfect number of 7, or an odd number as well. And that's based on research, and also paying attention to where you're holding these conversations. So find neutral ground. Libraries were recommended, and also like a children's museum, because it brings out the fun and dynamic parts of our creativity. And create psychological safety by building mutual respect or building trust and mutual respect. So there's different methods around doing this, but it's about ensuring there's an equity of voice. Everybody has a voice in that collaboration. And the second one is framing conversations with appreciative questions. I'm sure we all have come across and or practice appreciative inquiry. That's really what this is talking about, focusing on the possibilities rather than the problems, and also asking deep and questions that will allow for a lot of different answers that may lead to different solutions that could all work. And they talk about using the word might instead of can or should, because might takes away that judgment piece of it, and it just allows people to explore. Oh, okay. I don't, yeah, well, so we're on, okay, so 3 and 4 are the components of what could we do, identifying new opportunities that draw on the assets we already have. And that's where like leadership or us as evaluators or independent consultants, we really can bring in helping to identify and leverage existing assets. You could create lists and keep them up to date, and they're always changing and new linkages are being made. And it's kind of a fun exploration as a leader to help support that dynamic. And that doesn't mean that there's only one leader in the group. So maybe somebody else is in charge of that who's really good at that piece. And it doesn't have to be you. So that's something to think about. And the next is identifying the big, easy, and converting ideas into measurable outcomes. These are comprising the what should we do. And participants are choosing the opportunity and they're defining an outcome and making it measurable so that you're aligning on the same idea and making sure that everybody's on the same page. Because as we know, just because you have an outcome does not mean that everybody is operationalizing it in the same way. And the way to create the big, easy opportunity, they suggest using a 2x2 matrix where along one line you have one criteria is impact and the other criteria is ease of implementation. And if you can find something that is easy to implement and has a reasonable amount of impact, that's what you just go with. That's how you make a quick decision and just move forward. It doesn't mean you're not going to do the other things. It's just how you get your first quick win. And converting ideas into measurable outcomes for us evaluators, that's a big duh moment. But for us as evaluators, also strategic in our own strategic development for our businesses, are we doing that? And are we doing it as also, I'd be interested to know if you own a firm or a part of an evaluation firm, do you do that as a group? And this is also where appreciative framing and safe spaces are really essential for having these kind of discussions and the time and effort to put into this piece. But with the time, they're not saying like take 3 months. They're saying take, an afternoon, but really have it be a safe space. And consider 3 questions when you're doing a measurable, converting the ideas into measurable outcomes, which is, if we're successful, what will we see? What will we feel? And whose lives will be different and how? And that brings everybody into creating a future that they can sense, that they're emotionally tied to. And in the book, they talk about the agile leader as a dream catcher, which I really love. So the next 2 are skills 7 and 8 are helping us to move into what will we do. And they recommend like a short-term project and having and basically like this is where the agile approach comes in. So picking a small piece, drafting action plans that are very detailed and involve everyone, so everybody's got a job. And the agile leader is making sure that specific people are assigning themselves to things and there's clear deliverables and things are happening within a reasonable amount of time to see the difference happening. And then finally, the last 2, skills 9 and 10, point the group towards what's our 30-30. Matt and I were talking about this. We're not sure what the other part of what the second 30 is, but it's definitely that the authors recommend to meet every 30 every 30 days at least to revisit and ask, what did we learn in the last 30 days? Here's our outcome. Is this what we still agree on? Are we on track for what we're currently working on? And how should we update our action plan if not? And then when and where will we meet the next time? And maybe that second 30 is planning your next 30. Maybe that's what that is. So the great thing about this is it made me really think how often I work with groups and they're not having those courageous conversations where they're saying well, they've gone a while and then they have an evaluator come in and they haven't had that courageous conversation beforehand to say, is this what we should be doing? Like, is this really working? So I think it's nice because you put it in there. Everybody knows they're going to have to answer that question if you're an evaluator and having more of an iterative process with your team. To say like, I'm gonna ask you this every 30 days. We're gonna talk about this, get ready for it. Like, I really do feel like that's a great addition to projects. And obviously I'm more I don't worry about the whole keeping myself an objective person in the field. I like to be more part of the team and helping them to move forward. And what else? The agile leader is helping to reinforce these commitments that we're making to each other by nudging, connecting, and promoting. So nudging can be a shared folder that you're all using, a shared document as a checklist, a reply all, but you have to be sensitive about reply alls because you can also feel like you're being outed when you do a reply all. I actually feel like a shared folder or a shared document is much more effective than a reply all. And I guess that's it for these. We'll go back to them so you can look at them again when we do our discussion. But I just wanted to say that I did feel like this book was filled with helpful strategies and examples for enhancing your skills around strategic collaboration and agile leadership. It's not anything new or mind-blowing, but it's also helped me frame my approach better. And it's also been useful for me to actually make decisions on my business development. And I also think it's great to recommend for teams and organizations who are hesitant about changing from the traditional strategic plan to a more agile approach. And I'd love to hear how you might use it or may not use it. And lastly, I'm not going to critique too much, but the one missing piece of this was how to actually approach inclusion in these groups when our existing structures that we use for meeting don't really allow for that. And shout out to Dr. Tasha Parker, because she uses liberating structures in her work, and it in turn made me curious about this. But basically it's using different microstructures other than presentations, managed discussions. I don't know, there's 5 of them. There's 5 conventional kinds, but these 33 microstructures actually build in time and a framing so that you can include everyone equitably and you can liberate your ideas more freely. So 2 helpful structures are the 15% solutions and impromptu networking. And 15% solutions is a 20-minute exercise you could start off with for that first fundamental question to help discover and focus what each person has and the freedom for the freedom and the resources to do right now. I thought that would be a great addition. And that's all I have for the book review part. I'm going to practice my networking skills and share my LinkedIn QR code. If you're not already connected, please connect. And I also have my email, and my website up for anybody who likes emailing better. And yeah, I do have some discussion questions if we want a more guided approach, but Matt, how about you?
Yeah,
Let me know
before we
questions.
stop the recording and we get into the chat function, I guess I have a couple thoughts and I guess questions. There was a lot of kind of clever ideas that I was taking. And as again, I said at the beginning, I read this by listening to it while kind of exercising and doing other things. And that's not an ideal thing, but what it is good for is kind of like hearing certain things and going, that's a great idea. And then you kind of like isolate that one idea, but you're not seeing it in the whole context of the whole book the way you would if you read it. One of those ideas was like micro commitments. I really resonated with that idea of just like little small things that you can do or get people to commit to over time. And they give the reference of investments. If you're committing a small amount of your salary every month, it will develop wealth over a lifetime of a career lifetime kind of idea. And that also goes back to the nudge. I'm curious what you think about because this was written and published in 2019, right before the pandemic. And one thing I saw that I was like, well, that's not even the case anymore. They said to have an effective meetings, you need to meet in person at least 3 times. And I'm like, well, that's not even that doesn't make sense for us anymore. And plus, a lot of us have benefit from the fact that we're all very good at Zoom meetings, and we work remotely with a lot of our clients we may never see in person, maybe once over the course of a project where before we needed to meet with them in person. I guess my question back to you was, what do you think are some of the things that the authors would change about this book now that we've gone through this pandemic and things have kind of changed? We've had a bit of a change. If there was anything that you thought was out of date or anything like that.
Oh, great. Yeah, I did see that too. I was like, haha, you have to meet
3 times in person
three
before you
times
have an
in
effective
person.
group, right?
Like, nope. I was thinking we are even more open, loose, open, open and loosely connected networks dominate more fully in this environment after the pandemic. So I was thinking it's even more relevant and to the way we communicate and approach any kind of discussions. And I was thinking it's more relevant to the complexity of our issues. I guess the one thing I would say is this whole piece around equity of voice. I really think that it was missing a lot of great resources that it could have brought into the pictures, like liberating structures, a lot of different, it seemed like their background reading material was heavily in strategy, leadership, and management, and could have done with a little more sociology, evaluation, and just public health, like all that stuff, like would bring community psychology. Like I actually am not, maybe somebody else could speak to how much they brought community psychology into it, but those pieces would have been a little nicer to bring out. And I always like a list and like something I can look back on and be like, am I checking off like what I need to do for this? So I do appreciate the 10 skills to just kind of wash over and make sure that I'm incorporating them. But yeah, there were some other things that are definitely missing from the discussion.
The other thing that I thought was just it's so relevant to us starting consulting practices is the word doing versus planning. And I think a lot of us sit and think about what we should be doing, right? But we're not actually engaging. And it's like you can't really you need to start and then and make course changes. They refer to the kayak. You can't plan how you're going to go down that river. You need to get in the river and start moving down the river and then make adjustments as the waves hit you and you see a rock or whatever and the river bends, because you don't know what's going to happen until you're in it. And so I think that was an important thing too. And I think that's one of the key pieces that they press what's already in the title of the book of doing and not planning. I mean, certainly there's planning involved, but you need to get out there and start moving forward. So, all right.
Yep.
I'm going to stop the recording and say goodbye to everybody in YouTube land, everybody in live land, stick around. And I've got to find that. There it is. Stop recording. All right. See you later, YouTube people.